We didn't get to hear your stories.
I mean, we could share some stories. Amber, what do you got?
So what do you want to know? What's our story like as far as for how do we know each other?
First
Like,
off, how do you identify?
oh, okay. Yes.
And
Identify.
yeah, what do you
Oh, okay. I identify as a black woman. Also, I think being a mother is a big part of my identity. Being an educator is a big part of my identity. Yeah, being a wife and a school leader. I know I mentioned educator, but I think something I'm shifting into for the last 2 years is a school leader. So that's a different perspective. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yes. Yeah, I love that question. I'm biracial. I identify as being biracial. I'm a Latina, second generation. So I'm a DEI director. So right now that it feels so salient, because they're trying to come for my job. Yeah. I'm a DEI director. I consider myself to be a radical. I'm a socialist, an advocate. I'm an activist. I am a twin. I have a twin sister. Yeah, that comes up a lot. I'm a twin and Gemini twin too, which is funny.
when
We have Gemini twins in our family.
yeah,
Awesome.
male, female?
I have
No?
a twin sister. Yeah. And
Okay.
that's definitely a sacred part of my identity. And I'm an older sister. My younger brother is 16. So kind of like another a child. Yeah. But I love that question. And I love doing this work and I love having just these honest conversations about race.
Hello and welcome to the Mixtapes. I'm your host, Amber, and my co-host, Nikki, is here with me. Hi, Nikki.
Hey.
Welcome, welcome. And Nikki, Nikki and I would love to introduce our guest here, Victor and Cathy. They are the host of the 50 Talk podcast and also family members of mine. Victor is my cousin and he's joined here today with his wife, Cathy. Welcome, Victor and Cathy.
Thank you. Hello.
Yeah, welcome. Hello. You're our first guest on our podcast. We're so awesome. We're so excited to have you here on the Mixtapes. Tell us something good.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
So, something good about me, you said?
Please.
Beard. My beard is a pretty good thing. My Kathy likes it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you said, what was the question again? I'm sorry, repeat it again.
Tell us something good going on in your lives.
Yeah, positives. Well, Victor and I are the hosts of 50 Talk, and we are blessed to have been retired in our mid-50s. That gives us the time to be able to do our podcast. We also are blessed because 2 weeks ago, we just got off of a cruise, a 7-day cruise, our first cruise ever with Royal Caribbean, and it was lovely. So we're still feeling that.
Recovering.
Yeah, as you should.
Awesome. Yeah.
Amber, tell us something good.
Something good would be that I recently picked up reading for pleasure again. I kind of took a little hiatus and also it's hard to focus sometimes when you're so busy. So I was like, this is something I'm going to prioritize. So I picked up reading.
I also enjoy reading, Amber, and was not able to pick up doing that until I retired. So I'm with you.
Nice. Yeah. And there's a couple books that we've both read that we have talked about. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on some books. All right, Nikki,
Reading's
tell us
a
something good.
thing.
It is. What reading is fundamental.
Reading is fundamental. Something good in my life. I visited my family yesterday up in Albany. Got to see my abuelita and my tita Gary, one of my favorite aunties, and my little brother. So that's something good in my world. Curious, what are y'all reading? And before you tell me, I can plug a book I just started. It's called Love in a Fucked Up World, How to Hook Up and Raise Hell Together. It's by Dean Spade. He's the author of Mutual Aid. He wrote kind of like a textbook to mutual aid. And he just came out with this book. It's all about love and relationships, both like in interpersonal and like in the dating world, but also in like activist groups and like social change. And it's been so like mind blowing. So that's my plug.
Sounds awesome. Say it again. What's the name of it?
Called Love in a Fucked Up World, How to Hook Up and Raise Hell Together.
Yeah.
I am reading So Help Me God by Mike Pence. So I've been reading it off and on for a while. I mean, me as the Democrat that I am, I'm really interested in what this guy thinks. So I'm learning a lot so far in the little bit that I've read.
And I will say I picked that book up for him
She did.
our library had a book sale. You could fill a box for like $5 a book. And I thought sometimes that Victor needs to get a little bit of input from the other perspective. And so I thought it would be a really good, interesting read for him to see, get some perspective. But I read more for pleasure than for that type of education. I just got done reading since I started while we were on the cruise, and I finished it since we came back. I'm a big Colleen Hoover fan, and I read Confessions, I think it's called. Yeah. So it was a good read. Made me sad, though. I'm not going to tell the end. But some things occurred in it, and it kind of made me a little bit sad. But that's
Are her
usually
books
me.
known for being sad?
Pardon me?
I said, are her books known for being sad? Colleen Hoover.
I mean, there's a romantic story always to it. So some other things that were going on in it made me sad. Always a romantic. I'm a true romantic.
Aw, sweet.
How about you,
Okay.
Amber? What was your book called that you're starting?
Yeah.
Begin?
Yes, I'm trying to really get into it. All Black girls are activists. So yeah, I've been reading that. It's been pretty cool. I want to figure out how to uplift some Black girl students specifically at my school.
So is that how you mostly read? You want to gain some education to help others within your professional capacity, or do you do entertainment reading?
I definitely do entertainment reading, but I think right now this feels entertaining in the capacity that it's a way for me to gain like knowledge in an area, and kind of be inspired and motivated both in my professional and personal life.
Okay,
I
nice.
love that. I love that.
Thanks.
I'm excited to hear what your takeaways are and how you bring it back to your babies at school.
Yes, absolutely. Let's talk about it on the podcast for sure. All right.
There you go.
You want to jump right in, Nikki? You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So our first question that we just want to start off with this conversation is, how do either of you or both of you identify racially? And are there other parts of your identity that you feel are important?
Well, I guess I'm first. I'm African American. Kathy's.
But how are you going to tell me what I am?
I was looking at you. They don't that.
I am Caucasian. But you said how to identify. I mean, I think other things that are important is that I am in an interracial marriage and I have children who are biracial.
Okay. So being a wife and a mother are also parts of your identity.
Absolutely. In addition to, I'm a daughter.
A
grandma. So you're wanting to know, like, how do I identify not just racially, but in regards to as a person? I also identify as female. I still am a licensed social worker. I wear a lot of hats.
She got lots of identity.
Sounds like it. That's awesome, though. And those all sound really important to you.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Victor, are there any other... Oh, sorry, Nikki. Victor, are there any other parts of your identity other than African American that are important to you?
I mean, obviously, I'm a Black man. I consider myself a role model for hopefully my kids, hopefully my grandkids. But I've done a lot of coaching in my youth, my young adult years. So I always looked to be an example to kids. So, and like I said, that's been over 30 years. So I'd like to see some of those kids from the past and what they've done. So that's a thing about me.
I heard you say that you identify as Democrat.
Yes.
That's a big part of who you are.
Very much.
I see that, but I'm not sure that's how you identify.
I do, yeah. And that's a big part of my personality, my identity. So
thank you for sharing both of those. All right, Nikki, you have your next question for us?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for giving us some context and background into who you are as people and also together. And I think it's awesome that you named that you're in an interracial relationship, marriage, and you have biracial children. And that's obviously a huge theme here at the mixtape. So we're happy to see it. That's awesome. So I want to know, like, what's your love story? Tell us your love story, whatever that means to you. It can be the short and sweet elevator pitch. It can be your deepest loves for each other over the years. However you want to answer that. What is your love story?
We always like to come out as this is us for real. This is how we are on our podcast. What we say things, we mean them. Kathy and I met in a bar we hooked up and we've been together every day since, outside of work and other things. But we've been together ever since. That's a love story right there, right?
And that'll be 31 years together and 28 years married. So yeah, I mean, we met in a bar in regards to a dance club. It was not just a hangout bar, but
And she bought me the drinks.
I did. And I think we were like inseparable for besides, we still are.
I'm about to say, we're kind of inseparable now.
So beautiful.
Hey, get your tissues out.
I'm about to. I'm jealous.
Story. So when we first started dating, it was within the first 6 months of us dating. I had a group of girlfriends that I used to go to the club with all the time before I met Victor. There's a vacation spot here in Ohio. It's called Put-in-Bay. And it's a island. People go over there. There's a lot of bars.
A lot of family stuff to do as well.
Right. So we had that trip planned for some time, and my girlfriends and I went over for the day. And I got back home. Well, when I say back home, I got back to Victor's. I went to Victor's place after I got back from the island, and he was sitting in the dark eating cookies and drinking milk and was like, I missed you.
The Oreo cookies at that.
Yeah. So he was so pathetic.
Oh, wait, that's so cute. My parents have like a similar story. They're not as cute as y'all because they're divorced now. But they used to always tell us this story growing up about how they had met on a blind date. And so my dad is white, my mom is Dominican. And they had met on a blind date. And then like the day after, my mom went on a vacation with her girlfriends. And it was like the same thing. Like they had no way to contact each other because you couldn't do like a long distance phone call at that time.
Yeah.
And then when she came back, like my dad was sulking and was like, I really missed you.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's such a theme in relationships where it's like when people meet and then they have to separate for some reason for like a week or two.
Well, it even just occurred because my mom had surgery on Thursday and I went to stay with her because she stays in the town like 40 minutes from here. And I had to stay with her for 2 nights. And Victor was here by himself and he's like, I don't know what to do. I'm lonely.
Still misses you like that.
I'm a little sad around here.
Thank you for
That's so sweet. Yes, thank you for sharing your love story. All right, so speaking of love, what is something that you two love to do together? What are some things you love to do since you are inseparable?
Wow. That's kind of changed over the years too. So, I mean, she kind of got me into more outdoorsy type stuff, going on hikes and stuff. Yeah, I was in the military, so I already had done that, but I didn't know people really did that stuff. So she kind of got me into that, and we kind of built that up as a family tradition type thing, going out in the nature.
Yeah. Camping.
Yeah.
Never really camped.
I mean, the military is different than this type of camping, but,
Right. But and like you said, that's changed over the years in regards. I think now since we're both retired, we like traveling.
Yeah.
Adventuring
I was
out.
about to say, seeing different things.
Going to little small towns that really don't have much, but have like a couple that have shops or things, just walking down the street, going into various shops.
So saying about when we went, we were going to visit a friend of mine in Chattanooga, and we said, let's just make a trip out of it. So we went to Alabama or something afterwards. We stopped and seen a lot of things, but you get on Google and Google like food near me. We're talking that type of adventure, and we do a lot of that.
Yeah. And while we have a lot of things in common that we like to do together, we have a lot of things different. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
What are some of those different things?
Well, Victor's very much, if I can say, you're very much he likes to be home and I like to be on the go. That's one of our differences. I have a difficult time sitting down and relaxing. I always want to be busy doing something.
I'm the type of guy, when I thought of retirement, when I was working, like I'm going to be the guy that retires and actually sits down. So I don't have a problem sitting down.
Those have created parenting was a big difference for us.
As you being white, me being black, it was definitely a parenting issue early on.
In addition to the fact of me being female, him being male, me coming from a two-parent family, him being raised by a single mom. So parenting expectations were very different.
And we only have sons, so
How many boys do you have?
we have 2 together, but we pretty much raised my oldest son, so we have 3 together.
Well, that's awesome. What a blessing.
Mhm.
I was actually curious about like difficulties in terms of being of different races. Like how has your relationship experienced difficulties? I don't even want to say it as a yes or no question because I know that they're there. But what are some of those difficulties? And especially being together over the last 30 plus years, like have there been difficulties in the past that don't necessarily matter anymore? Walk us through that.
I mean, even aside from just the racial issues, how I was raised and dealt with money compared to how she was raised and dealt with money.
How are some of the differences? Okay. So I'm trying to think because there's so much. I mean, and having been together so long, like things have changed a lot. A lot changed. And even like our relationships with other people, a lot changed when the situation with George Floyd occurred. I will be honest, like maybe I wasn't always in tune to the struggles Victor was having or um wasn't as knowledgeable about things. And our relationship took some rocky roads and it took us both to sit down, which is one of the reasons we started the podcast too. It brings us together to once time, at least a week, to have conversations about things, sometimes things that are difficult to have conversations about, and looking at how does race play in our relationship?
We still do talk outside of that one day podcasting.
I
We,
love that disclaimer.
We really do like each other.
but I think, we live in a very white society and white world.
We meaning who?
Me and you, all of us live in a very white world society. And I think even at times, like looking back at our friends or people we interact with or things we do, I want to say like stereotypically say they're white. You know what I mean?
I think we live in a diverse city.
Wait a minute. When we moved to this house,
This was considered,
other black families, black people that lived on the street,
but it changed over the years.
had issues with that. That's what I'm saying. We had issues with the guy who didn't
Shovel the snow.
shovel our snow in our front on our walkway, but went around and did everybody else's on the street.
I mean, those are all like life-changing moments that you gotta like adjust your life to.
Yeah.
Getting older.
So this area that we live in now has migrated and gotten more diverse. But when we first moved here,
It was mostly white.
And now, I know Amber being part of Victor's family, but realistically, like, because you live in Colorado, a lot of people live not very close to us. So with regards to extended family spending time on a daily basis or that with us really only was Victor's mom. There were no other examples or black people around our kids or around that had influence. Yes, holidays, family get-togethers, but that could be once a year, once every 6 months. But was there going to our kids' basketball games or going to our kids' school events? Most of the time it was my family, my white family that went to those things for them growing up or supporting us in regards to coming to watch the kids for us or helping with the children. So they didn't have that example.
I think that story will resonate with a lot of our viewers and listeners as a pretty common story. I'm curious, as a parent, what steps did you take to ensure that your kids had that representation since it wasn't in their day-to-day life outside of the house?
I mean, I've always recognized or told them I'm a black man, and I always tried to live the best life. Go out there, work hard every day, don't break laws. So that was my example to set for them.
I know one thing you always told the kids, and I don't know that they, really understood it, but you always reinforced them. You would always say, no matter what you think that you are in regards to racially, people out there are going to see that you're Black. That's what he would say, that you can be in here and, you're biracial. Yes, you're this and this. But when shit goes down and you're the only kid and the rest of them are white, you're Black.
If you ain't lighter than them, you Black. You going down.
And our kids will still argue with us to this day that, well, that might not be true now. People don't see it like that. But that's definitely the perspective that Victor and I, see, and he's impressed on them growing up.
Yeah, that resonates a lot. As a biracial person, that resonates a lot to what I heard growing up.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do your sons identify racially?
That's funny because we had them on our podcast early on when we started, and we all were sitting around the table, and both of our sons identified as Black.
No, Griffin identified as biracial.
Right.
That was his, and Maxwell identified, our youngest son identified as Black. And Deontay, who is Victor's son from his first marriage, is Black and identifies as Black. But we even too try to, with our grandson is biracial, and try to, educate and talk with him about what does he identify as.
Like, you got to be delicate with kids. I think a little more today because we had a book that's a kid's book, but it was given to us to give to our grandson. We knew how controversial this book was, so we had to give it to the grandson's parents to let them go over to see if we could give it to our grandson, because is your kid ready to see that there's differences and people look at people differently? Are they ready to tell their kid that at such a young age?
Well, the book was about slavery.
It was about the 1619
project.
1619 project.
And it was the
kid version, yeah.
Born on the Water.
Yes, Born on the Water, yeah.
Exactly. So, out of respect for his parents, they're the parents. And out of respect for them, it's their child. Yes, we're the grandparents, and we believe that he should be exposed to this book and it be read to him. But they're the parents.
Yeah.
And they have the right to make the choice about that. So we did introduce it to them. We shared it with them. We said, where it came from and what we thought that that it would be a good book to share if they wanted to read it and think that he was ready. We could do it together with him. They could do it. We talked about how should the book be introduced. That book wasn't around when our two children together were born or were younger to be able to share with them, but we did share it with them now that they're grown.
Right.
Gave it to them to read, and I thought it was good for them to read now too. But just as grandparents, like that, to me, it's important to empower their parents when they feel it's time and it's right because it's their child, but we'll support whatever they want to, whatever decision they have. But we always talk in this household, Black History Month, other things in regards to Juneteenth celebration, wanting to take, our grandson. I personally have taken my grandson to his biological grandmother, would be Victor's first wife's father's, like he was doing a concert. And, I think it's important to let him be exposed to all that and take him to all those type of things. Keep his heritage.
That's awesome.
So for our kids, though, besides telling them that, we had books. We did a lot, we didn't.
We did a lot of museums and stuff with the kids, Cub Scouts and all that. Right. But, talking about they'd have activities in school or have, like Black History became more of a big thing, I think, while they were growing up. So, I think they got their fair share.
Yeah. And friends-wise, we let, whoever they want to be friends with, encouraged, allowed them to date, have friends, come over, whatever. Not even just racially, but gender-wise.
Yeah, raising kids today at our age, well, when we were in our 30s, it's a lot of stuff that we'll just do Gen X. Us Gen Xers, have a lot to deal with while we were raising our kids, plus our own ways of trying to keep up. So you got to open your mind up a lot as a Gen Xer, as anybody, I think, to the world today.
Absolutely. I agree. Just I do agree. Just want to jump in there. All right. Well, let's see. My next question would probably be growing up. I guess I'm trying to like build off of what you all were saying about like just raising your sons. But like what stories were you told by those in your life about interracial couples for you all? And then like what stories do you tell your sons?
What stories were told to me about interracial couples growing up?
Yep.
Well, I don't think I was told any stories, but what I can share is, because it wasn't even talked about. I mean, when it came to me and Victor dating, like that was a big hurdle for my family to overcome. I think my dad did, or my mom, one of them said that I would grow out of this trend. But I knew early when I was probably in 6th grade, there was a boy in my class who was Hispanic. I think he was Mexican, his identity would be. And, in 6th grade, will you go with me? Do you like me? Whatever. And he called my house and my sister answered the phone. And she either knew him because she drove bus for the school. I can't remember if she knew him or if she knew just from his dialect on the phone that he was not Caucasian. And she said, you better never let our dad answer the phone when he calls. So I got a very clear message then that interracial dating was probably not accepted within my
Did you just
family.
Oh, I'm like, what's going on over there?
It's a little emotional.
So what about
I
you?
would say, yeah.
Huh?
I said
No,
it could
no,
be
I
a little
wasn't
emotional
joking.
thinking
No.
back. Not really. Okay, that's fair.
No, I wasn't. I wasn't really. I was choking on water, but that was a pretty clear message that I got. Although, it wasn't a direct, it wasn't like we're talking about it. No, you can't enter, but it was just the message that I received from my family, my sister.
So obviously Amber knows our family. Where I grew up here in Ohio, in Sandusky, Ohio, I thought our town was like no other town. The diversity was freaking incredible for me growing up. So I knew black people, white people, everybody hung out together. You knew where there was just so much in Sandusky for me growing up. So me dating outside of my race wasn't a big issue. And in the community that we lived in, we didn't, at the time when we first got together, it was a thing, more or less, but people like being really serious like we were hadn't got there yet. Maybe having interracial relationships in the late 90s, early 2000s became more married type couples, I don't know, Gen Xers.
Well, I'm going to say 2 things on that with you, though. I'm going to challenge you. Yes, your family would accept it. I would say your mom. But what about the girl you were dating? I disagree that white people in Sandusky weren't as open-minded because
Wait, who was that?
what was he dating?
And I was dating you?
No, when you were dating other girls from Sandusky,
Okay.
was it cool with their family that y'all was dating? Or was it, oh, they can't find out we're dating?
Well, yes, some families in Sandusky were also, didn't like their daughters dating outside their race.
Yeah. But the message.
But they did it anyway, where they just put me in limbo.
Right. So the message you got from your family was it was okay. Your mom didn't have an issue with it, but the other people, whoever you were dating, sometimes their families had an issue.
Yeah.
When we first got together, versus today, I don't know if it's because I'm more immune to it. It feels just more normal. When we first got together, it seemed like it wasn't as common. And then to find out that, the law in regards to interracial marriage just passed not
some years early
prior to us getting together, because we got married in 1996. It's like mind blowing that, wow. And now today to think that potentially our marriage could be thrown out as Roe v. Wade was, is also very. Someone was detected at your front door.
Say that.
But yeah. So
we actually just filmed our first podcast episode, and it's about loving in Virginia and the case. So it's so interesting that you brought that up. Yeah. Do you have any current fears about? You mentioned, Roe v. Wade being overturned. What do you think is the future of interracial marriage in the United States? Do you think it's under attack?
Me personally, yes. Since that Roe v. Wade stuff happened, when Clarence Thomas said that, I'm like, wait a minute, why would you say that? First of all, you married to a white woman and you black. So what are you saying? So that made me think like, well, if he don't care about it, then yeah, we might be in fear here. So yeah, I've just been waiting for the hammer to drop. Like, where we going, Cathy?
Is it fair to say Clarence Thomas doesn't consider himself black, though?
I mean, he always said he tried to be as black as he could, but they never accepted him. So maybe he just a white dude that looked black. I don't know.
Or I said to Victor, maybe he's trying to find a way to get rid of his wife. If I make this law, it's really easy to get rid of her. I mean, for ourselves, on our calendar, it's important, we have the Loving Day in June on our calendar and we celebrate it in a small way. It's not like a big anniversary, but we make mention to each other, or I might post on social media, Happy Loving Day, just bringing awareness to people that, our relationship, while we've been together, 20, 30 some years, I'm married 28, is not guaranteed. And we have other interracial couple friends that we talk about things like that with.
Righty. Well, thank you for sharing that and for coming on our podcast. Nikki, do you have any other questions for our guest?
I mean,
We
how
talk
do you
a
say?
lot.
No, you talked a perfect amount, and I
No, you did great.
wanted to note your vulnerability that you've just been so vulnerable and open with us. I really appreciate that. So thank you. And I guess I would ask if you have any advice to our listeners out there who may be new to dating someone outside of their race, or they're nervous about it, or they have a crush and they don't know because it's forbidden or whatever. Let me not make assumptions for our listeners, but do you have any advice for listeners out there on interracial marriage and dating?
I do personally. Like I say, especially if you're a white person, male or female, or to be aware of your white privilege and to do some, studying, reading information so that you can recognize how that impacts your relationship with regards to you having white privilege and what other, the person that you're with is challenged with or doesn't have as easy because you do have white privilege.
I'll say, follow your heart. If this is what you two decide to do and you love each other and you don't care about what other people think, or you really shouldn't care about what other people think, then do your thing. People going to like you one way or the other. You find the people that you want to be around, and that's just how it is.
That's such good advice.
Follow your heart.
Beautiful, beautiful advice. So thank you sincerely for being on our podcast and being our first guest. I'm going to kick it over to Amber for closing thoughts before we end the recording.
Thanks for having us.
Yes,
Yeah, thank you so much definitely for being our first guest and for just being really open and vulnerable and willing to talk to us about anything.
Yeah, I'll say on that vulnerable part, I appreciate you acknowledging that it wasn't as easy. We've had these questions, in other arenas that we've answered, so it's gotten easier to answer them. But it wasn't always as easy to first identify the answers, like really having to take some personal inventory and identifying the answers and then being able to share them.
Awesome. So let's see. When we end our podcast, we like to end with setting an intention. So like something that you're looking forward to, something that you want to do. I shouldn't say looking forward to, something that you want good to happen or come about in the upcoming week. Like what's your intention for the week? I will let you two go first as our guest. What is your intention for this upcoming week?
Being that I care about people so much, I just hope the next 2 weeks are better than the past 2 weeks. You could take that whichever way you want, but It's just been so much negativity the last two. Let's hope for a better next.
I'm trying to think of something more like personal that I have control over in regards to intention. I'm dealing a lot right now with being a caretaker or assisting with being a caretaker for my mom who's having some medical problems. So balancing being conscious about her struggle with losing her independence and my evaluation of her need for help. And how am I balancing?
Yeah, absolutely. Nikki, good intentions for the week?
I love these intentions. Mine is silly, but Valentine's Day is coming up. I haven't been alone on Valentine's Day since 2020. This is my first year without a partner since 2020. So my intention is to not let that bother me. And Amber, what is your intention for the week?
My intention is to, I think it kind of builds off of Victor's a little bit in that, the next 2 weeks are positive, but I think making those 2 weeks positive. So I'm going to be intentional about finding joy in my day and tuning out like any other noise, which is focusing on joy. That's going to be my intention.
That is so hard for me to do.
Do you have any tips to help Victor do that? Most fun to me.
Meditation and
Yeah, I think just like making a list, like before you start the week of like, what are some things that are fun to you? And then saying like, this is just like, a way that you could go about that. Like, hey, I like doing this. I like doing that. So each day I'm going to try to make sure I make time for that thing that I really enjoy doing. That's just extra and fun.
I love it. Joy is resistance. Joy is resistance. They don't want us to be happy. So
you got that right.
Got to do something that makes you happy every single day.
Yeah, self-care.
We'll link Cathy and Victor's podcast in our description. Please check them out. If you or anyone you know is interested in joining the podcast, we also have a form in our description that you can sign up to be a guest on our podcast. So that's us. That's the mixtapes. And have a wonderful, joyful rest of your day.